Welcome, everybody. And first off, thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. On this episode, it's our first episode back from Japan. So it's a little bit exciting for us. It took us a little time, and we apologize about all the breaks and everything. But, during the Lunar New Year, we were in Japan for basically a week, and we were going to try to record, but we didn't really have the chance. And we were worried about audio quality and things like that. So it ended up happening, but we did get this one done, and I've been trying to release content that we had recorded previously to you guys to keep you guys updated, and we've been writing a lot of articles. So I strongly encourage everyone to go check out all the articles we wrote. Ari's written a number of them. I wrote two. His have been some really good articles that I think are quite informative on especially Taiwan. One that I really enjoyed was regarding basically a rebuttal to Richard Bush's article about Tsai Ing-wen visiting Congress in the U.S. and what that could mean for both the United States and Taiwan and the relationship between the two, which I think is greatly important. So I encourage you guys to check that out. I wrote one about Amy Klobuchar, aka Amy Cloud Boot Jar, that basically is less of a specific attack on her and more attack on centrism and just the idea that we can't afford anything, and so Democrats should run milquetoast campaigns. And then the other one I wrote was regarding Ilhan Omar and her recent controversy with her tweets. I'll kind of you can go read the article, but I also encourage you to listen to the podcast, because the second half of the podcast, after we talk about Trump and interventionism and a lot of other things that we discussed in the first half, we get into the meat of the controversy and where both Ari and I land on that, and we have a pretty good discussion. It was a less heated debate than we had in episode 23, but I believe it's equally substantial. All that being said, just appreciate you guys listening. So without further ado, we will get into the podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to FreeChinaPost episode 25. Yes. Yes, 25, because we're including episode 24, which is the stream/pod, as a pod for now. I think eventually we might have to break that off and make a separate YouTube channel for that.
Why not include it on the same channel? I don't understand.
I mean, we could. It's just like, it's not as... I mean, I could post all the videos there, but it's not like it's not exactly the same. Like, if someone just listens... So you guys, everyone listening, 23 is already up, so if you haven't listened to that, I'm disappointed in you. And 24 will probably be up will definitely be up before this one comes out. We're recording this on a Saturday night, so probably your Saturday morning if you're in the States. But the 24, we couldn't decide if we wanted to stream video games or podcasts, so we kind of did both. And so it's kind of like disjointed a little bit. Like, we have a few good conversations, but there's parts in the middle where we're just like, oh, you shot me, and stuff like that. So it's just like a little not, I don't know. It's not super smooth. And there are parts where we're just playing games and not really talking about anything. So I don't know. I'm still, we can still talk about it. I'm not sure exactly what I want to do, but that one will go up as is, and maybe we'll just see what people think about it.
I haven't played in a long time, man. It's been 2 weeks.
Well, we also haven't podcasted since then, so we haven't podcasted.
I miss playing games more than
either.
podcasting, to be honest, because we talked politics all through the trip.
That's true, but I don't know. I love podcasting, so it makes me think and try to prepare for important discussions. So I don't know. It's also one of the only intellectually stimulating times I get to have regarding politics, because basically no one I know in Taiwan is can have a serious discussion with me about American politics, at least.
Except for me. That makes me feel so good.
See, that's why the podcast is important.
You should come visit, man. You can find some time in March or something.
Yeah, there might be some time. What are you doing for 228 holiday?
I don't know if I have it off. I don't think Zhejiang has it off, honestly.
It's a national holiday, man. You
Yeah,
should at
the
least.
Thursday is, but I don't think we have the weekend off.
Oh, really? That's whack, man.
That's what Abby said.
You gotta figure something out with that. That's ridiculous.
It is what it is.
If not, I'm legit just gonna like stay at my house for 4 days and write articles and try to podcast.
If you have the time off, come down here, man. What are you doing?
Well, if you're gonna be at work all day, I don't know.
I'll be at work some of the day.
Oh, I don't know if I have to teach my one-on-one on Sunday, but maybe I'll come down for a day or two.
You should, man. Go to the beach.
That would be nice. It's gonna be real nice here next week, so I imagine it's gonna be even nicer down there. So
It's always nice. It was so nice today, man. There was a beautiful sunset on the mountains.
it's good. It was nice here until late afternoon. It's still not bad, but it's a little chilly. Like, you gotta wear a jacket when you ride a scooter, but that's about it.
That's lame.
Nah, it's fine. It's nice. At least it's not hot in my house. So
It's 228 is 2 weeks from now. So,
yeah, it's the next Thursday.
yeah, man. If I don't have it off, you should come. You and Abby should come, and then we could at least go out Saturday night. Even if you got to work on Sunday, you can just go back on Sunday.
Yeah, I would have to get up pretty early on Sunday. I don't know. We'll think about it.
What
Talk
time
about
is what time is your tutor, man?
2 p.m.
I mean, you could just push it back an hour, and you could leave at noon.
The problem is she like has like other cram school classes in Taipei at night. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll discuss. I'll think about it. Also, another problem is I'm gonna have to get my aunt to like talk to her because I don't have her contact information or her mom's contact information.
That's extreme.
It is what it is. It'll be all right.
Well, I guarantee you, if the cram schools are not going to be open that weekend either, probably.
That's probably true. But I don't know if your cram school is open. Maybe
on
they will.
Saturday, but probably not Sunday. But,
Maybe.
I don't know for sure.
Maybe.
The schools should have it off. I don't know. I'm not sure if mine does. This is just what Abby told me because I haven't gotten my March schedule yet.
Well, we'll find out soon and we'll figure it out.
All right.
Got anything you're itching to talk about?
I mean, there's lots of stuff. There's the executive order, which is pretty good news.
It just happened.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun, man. I'm excited to see what comes of that because most likely, what do you think? Do you think it'll be struck down?
Almost certainly.
That's what I.
Well,
yeah,
because
that's what
like
I
most
felt,
people
too.
are saying already now, basically this like within an hour after he signed it, he held a press conference and said, "I didn't need to do this, but I wanted to do it faster," which is basically an open admission that it's not an emergency.
It's not an emergency. That's right.
So,
not to mention all the evidence that shows that there's no crisis at the border. Like, migration is down. Like, I don't need to go into all the statistics, but migrants do less crime, undocumented immigrants included. Like, it's just a joke, man.
well, okay, so I listened to Jerry Nadler, who's the head of the House. House? Yeah, I think the Judiciary Committee in one of the branches.
Uh-huh.
I think he's a House member. Anyway, so he said there are two major legal issues. One is that the definition of emergency and who's allowed to define the state of emergency, and obviously, if he said I didn't need to do this, he basically already shat all over his defense, which is that he needed to do it because it was an emergency.
Yeah, that's right. And did you read about I know both California and New Mexico have already they're already pulling troops off the border. They're National Guard troops because they're like, there's no emergency here. Like, we're wasting our resources on this.
Well, because they're not doing anything in the first place. I'm not because they're not allowed to. They're constitutionally not allowed to enforce immigration law. So basically, they're what were they doing? Just like sitting in the desert as like a I don't know, like a scary thing, because they're not even allowed to apprehend people who try to cross. They're literally
exactly
not
what
allowed
they're
to do
doing.
anything.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were doing. They were literally like sitting out there, like there's reports from them just being like, we're like so bored, like we literally are just sitting out here in like the hot sun, and like some
I mean,
of
they're
like they were like
basically
in like
scarecrows.
tents. Yeah, they were like in tents and stuff. So you're just making these soldiers suffer in like extreme heat and stuff. I mean, now it's not like as much extreme heat, but the time they sent them before, it's just like they're not doing anything. It's like a huge waste of resources.
It's a human scarecrow is what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
So the other issue is the constitutional matter. First being that the president doesn't have the right to reappropriate the use of military and emergency fund, or he doesn't have the right to spend money without Congress, because that's a delineated power of Congress specifically, so that he can't repurpose the money from different military uses. But also the fact that if he's using executive power to claim a military use, okay, to claim that it's a military emergency because he can make use of the military to do that, he's also not constitutionally not allowed to use that military purpose in order to enforce federal law, to enforce civil law, which makes the entire thing moot in the first place. If he's not allowed to, if this crisis is military, that means that if he's claiming that it's military, then he needs to find a military use for it. He can't use it to enforce immigration law.
Mm-hmm.
So, unless there were like an army on the border, which there isn't. I mean, he's using it.
Yeah.
His entire explanation is that it's to enforce immigration law, basically. So there are so many holes with the legal argument. I think it's going to fall apart pretty fast. And I mean, it's just a symbol of his epic failure to do anything. He's so incompetent.
Just floundering at this point.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to mention that even if it did pass, like it's gonna be so bad for the Republican Party. Like like you said, like basically it's not going to. But even hypothetically, if it did, that means if a moderately progressive person gets in the order, they can say, okay, excuse me, like there's so many issues that Medicare for all, like the health crisis, that's a national
They
crisis.
could do climate change. They could do gun
Climate
control.
change,
They could start
exactly.
seizing guns. And
Exactly.
I mean, so what Nadler was also predicting is possibly, first of all, the House of Representatives is more than likely going to pass a move to try and censure this act. And what he was predicting is that the Senate would actually probably do the same, because it's such a usurpation of the constitutional delineated powers of the Congress. Like this is a pretty extreme. What he was saying is this is probably the most radical constitutional crisis in at least a couple hundred years, because you're allowing the president to basically act without congressional approval in doing things that are not delineated to him in the Constitution. So it's giving him broader powers to act under whatever he considers an emergency. And that sets a precedent that's not only dangerous, but basically reinterprets the Constitution and turns him into a person who has much fewer checks on his constitutional power if it's reinterpreted that way. So this sets a really dangerous precedent.
Yeah, I think some not as severe, but a similar one would be the authorization for military force, that essentially now the president can have military action across the world, basically, or at least in the Middle East, with in their discretion. But yeah, your point is well taken that it's pretty unprecedented for a move like this,
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but I'm pretty sure there was an act of Congress that basically gave the president the right to do that. Is that not true?
There was, but that was only for Iraq when it initially.
No, that's not what I mean.
For Iraq and Afghanistan. Go ahead.
Isn't there? Let me look it up. Actually, so the Constitution grants Congress the power to declare war, but it also grants the president the domain of the army. So the president is allowed to use the army according to the Constitution in order to defend the United States as he sees fit. And so in 1973, the War Powers Resolution basically said that the president needs congressional approval to carry out any conflict that exceeds 60 days and needs to notify Congress of any military act within 48 hours.
Well, that would mean that all the wars that we're in right now are illegal.
Well,
I mean, and I know you don't necessarily define them as wars. We've
yeah,
talked about
exactly.
this before,
They're
but
not defined as wars.
but
Because
that's you. But what is so? Read that again, because you said to use the military basically for over 60 days, right?
to engage in a protracted conflict for more than 60 days. So this would...
We're involved in protracted conflicts that have kids that are fighting in those wars now that were literally not born when they were started.
Okay, so what you could argue is that it's not a continuous conflict. It's an intermittent conflict.
Okay, yeah, I would disagree with that, but I understand your point. I mean, that's fine. I would totally disagree. I feel that all the current conflicts that we're in right now are illegal, and if we want to go into those, we should get congressional approval. And most of the, like, Afghanistan, like, basically it's like less popular than, like, Afghanistan is like less popular than the Vietnam War, which says quite a lot with the American people. So I don't know, man. But yeah, anyway, not to derail the whole conversation, but I just had to throw my 2 cents in there.
So, I mean, I think the definition here of a protracted conflict is if U.S. armed forces are committed to foreign territory.
I mean, we have military bases and, like, are set up in there. We have been set up. We have thousands of troops.
Yeah, but those aren't conflicts. Those are bases in areas that are considered stable.
Not all. I don't know that. Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay. Yeah. It's a semantical argument, I guess. But
I mean, well, okay. You're which wars are you referring to? Which illegal? You're talking about Yemen. I mean, the United States has no bases in Yemen. In Central Africa, again.
Yemen, Syria, Afghanistan. I mean,
well, Afghanistan, we have there's a approval of war for Afghanistan.
Okay,
so that's not an illegal war.
That was included with the one for Iraq, or was there a separate one for that?
I don't know. I'm pretty sure there's
not important, but yeah, I think for Iraq and Afghanistan, those were two that may have been approved by Congress. Iraq obviously was approved under, like, false pretenses, but it is what it is, and we're not doing as much there anymore. I don't know. I mean, we're bombing in Niger, which it's just like things like that I think are just ridiculous. So I don't know. I feel like it's a waste of resources. It's a waste of human life. We could use our money and resources in those countries much more intelligently. But anywho, again, I don't want to derail the conversation. We can have this conversation some other time when I don't know. Anyway, when it's more pertinent, I guess. I guess it's always pertinent, but but I thought there was something else I was going to talk about. Anyway, go ahead with. Do you have more to say on the crisis at the border that we need to take care of because the illegals are murdering people?
I think that this is a universally unpopular move. Basically, he's the worst politician. He's the worst president. He's the worst everything ever. And he's going to go down in the history books as the worst president in American history. The biggest laughingstock. The dumbest man. The smallest hands.
I just wish it didn't make America look so dumb, man.
Yeah, man. When those presidential portraits have those little baby hands, it's just going to make America look horrible for decades.
I think Bernie Sanders should just campaign on that. It's like, I have big hands. And they're actually big on, like...
We should compare our hands.
Yeah. I need to work on my Bernie Sanders accent.
How tall is Bernie Sanders?
I don't know. He's probably not as tall as Trump. Trump's actually like 6'2" or something. He's like moderately tall.
Trump is a fucking, like, behemoth. Now do you know he's obese now?
Oh, did they actually say it? They still said he was healthy.
No, they came out yesterday and said he's obese now. He did another weight check and now he's 30.2 or something. So he's
fat now.
He's the first obese president we've had in a while.
Yeah, since probably Taft, maybe.
I don't know what Taft looked like, but we should body shame all the presidents.
Taft was huge. He got buried in a piano box because he's too big for a normal coffin. He was a huge bitch.
Trump's gonna be buried in a prison graveyard.
And I hope so. I hope they should close Gitmo except for one cell and just keep him there. Gitmo funny. Should be illegal for everyone except for Trump. But also, by the way, Bernie Sanders is 183 centimeters tall.
Wow.
Taller than me.
He's taller than me too.
Yeah.
No, so what is that in inches? Is that five?
That's probably that's probably
5'13"?
that's probably real close to 6 feet.
5'14"?
5'13".
Somewhere around there, right?
Let's see.
You could just do 183 cm to inches on Google.
That's what I'm doing right now. 7'2". 72. Yeah, I just did that. Too.
7'2".
He's Bernie Sanders is 7'2" tall. That's a monster.
So what were you saying? 7'2"?
Huh? No, he's 70. He's 72 inches tall.
72. That's 6 feet.
Yep, there you go.
Okay. As you're saying, he's 7'2".
No. I said 72 inches tall. So.
Well, then
Pretty-
he
that's
probably
pretty
his
good.
hands are probably bigger than Trump's. I mean, realistically, like.
I feel like my hands might be bigger than Trump's. I have moderately large hands. And
I've
that's
got
not-
big hands, the
that's
biggest
not
hands.
Fake, that's not fake news like Trump.
They're tremendous.
My feet are not that big, but my hands are big. My hands are actually almost as big as my feet.
Did you see that tweet from the governor of California?
About what? No, I didn't see it. I don't think.
Trump is like, you should look it up, man. Trump is like, California's high-speed rail system is a disaster, and the federal government wants its money back. And the governor of California has tweeted back. He's like, #fake news. We're not paying you anything back because the money was earmarked, and actually we do have a high-speed rail in Central California. So suck on that. Something like that. It was good.
It's hilarious.
It was a good clap back.
Yeah, I'm loving the clapbacks right now because there's been quite a few good ones on what's his name, on like against Trump, and also by like
Did you hear Ann Coulter's?
I saw she was like tweeting shit about him, but I try not to
Ann
read
Coulter.
her shit because she drives me crazy.
Ann Coulter, he was like pretending. He's like, I don't really know Ann Coulter. I've never heard of her before.
Good one.
She starts posting pictures of them together. So basically, somebody asked her in an interview, she's like, what do you think of this state of emergency? And she's like, the only emergency is that our president is an idiot.
She's pissed off about the wall. She's like a violent racist.
Yeah, but at least like people that he followed before are now just like shitting all over his face. Because at least she's probably like like all these Republicans for so long, they're like, Constitution. And then we'll see what happens with this, man. If they back out, if they don't say anything about like this executive state of emergency, like usurpation of congressional power, like they will forfeit any and all claims they have to like to being the party of like constitutional originalism.
Well, they haven't been for a long time, and but the problem is that the Republicans and their base are both vapid, man. They don't care. Like, just
I feel
look
like
at,
some do, man. I feel like some do.
some
the Tea
do,
Partiers.
but it's small, man, and the Tea Partiers are almost non-existent anymore. Like, look at just the election of Trump in general. Like, they call themselves like. They want to be like the party of family values and things like that, and Trump is like the exact opposite. He like literally he posed with Jerry Falwell Jr., I believe, and I think that's who it was. It was him or Billy Graham's son in his office, and behind him is like Trump on the cover of Playboy. It's just like what family values? Like this is just a party of
he's
rich
cheated on
degenerates.
every like imported trophy whore wife that he's found so far.
He's disgusting, man. And
He
he
is
doesn't.
disgusting.
He literally doesn't. He said 2 Corinthians. Like, you want to call yourself like the party of? They call it the party of Christian values too. And it's just like the guy doesn't even know how to say 2 Corinthians. It's just like his pastor recently came out and said like he hasn't been to church like ever. The place he went to church, the guy was like, yeah, I've seen him like twice, basically. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, he never came. He wasn't a member of the church.
I mean, I'm sure that doesn't surprise anybody. Anyone who thinks that Trump is like a good Christian is fooling themselves.
But the thing is they try to play it off like he is. And then they do this thing where they're like, they always do this under Republican presidents. They say, well, you know, God chose him, and God doesn't always choose perfect people, but he chose Trump. And it's just like, well, where were you when fucking Obama was elected, you pieces of shit? Like, you're so full of shit. It's such a like a crock of garbage. It's
I
just
love
all
it. I
it's
love it.
all
It's so
lies,
funny.
man. It makes me that stuff makes me more angry than anything, man. It's so hypocritical. But yeah, it is funny at the same time.
It's the best.
It's
The best.
I'm just waiting for like the destruction of what is the Republican Party. I hope they really have to rebuild and like I don't know. I don't really like conservatism in general. I think it's a stupid ideology for the most part.
I think all ideologies serve their own purpose, and I think conservatism itself. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I think it serves a purpose, at least for balancing out extremism from the left, because sometimes there is extremism, man.
I mean, sometimes what I would argue is that basically what it should happen is the Republican Party should be totally dismantled and destroyed, and the Hillary arm of the Democratic Party should go to become the new Republican Party, just be the new Republicans,
Okay.
and that would be an acceptable. That would be like an international like Overton window. Right now, the Overton window in the U.S. is so shifted to the right. It's like unbelievable, man.
Let me ask you this, because like a lot of the Democratic left supports improving relations with China, and that basically the United States should allow Taiwan to, like that Brookings article, the Brookings Institution article I'm writing about. This is basically from like the left wing of the Democratic Party, that that the United States should basically just like let China take Taiwan and like stop trying to interfere. That this is like again American like interference. So, what would you say to this?
Well, I'd say, of course, that's like a stupid thing, and it's not a well thought out policy. Like that is like a bad thing. Like,
But why?
letting-
I mean, because their argument from some of these people would be that this is like an internal issue between China and Taiwan, basically, and we need to stop being so hard on the communists, basically, and they've done an okay job for like helping China develop. I mean, obviously, I 100% disagree with that, but that's their argument.
I just think it's a bad reading of the situation. Like I think they haven't thought about it enough, or like don't understand it. What I will say is that there have been a few Democrats. I was tweeting about it. I'll share it if you remind me after this podcast. And everyone go follow our Twitter. Shameless plugs. Follow our Twitter. I just dunk on people all day. It's really
Follow
fun.
our Twitter.
Just at FreeChinaPost, all one word, obviously. Anyway, there are a few Democrats that are now stepping up and saying like China needs to leave Taiwan alone. So it's getting better, but your point is well
Heidi
taken.
the hell alone. China, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Taiwan the hell alone. I'm Ted Cruz.
What about from the anti-interventionists who say that this is again America getting involved in areas where it doesn't need to stick its military might or nose?
What I'm largely an anti-interventionist, but what I would say is you use the military to protect our allies. You don't use it for offensive wars. You use it to protect our allies. So, like the Kurds in Yemen and
Whoa,
Taiwan.
there's no Kurds in Yemen. You mean
No,
the
sorry,
Kurds
not
in-
Yemen. Syria, sorry. I misspoke. But anyway, yeah, the Kurds in Yemen and
The Kurds
and
in
Taiwan
Yemen should all
are
be given
exemptions.
citizenship.
I agree. Let's just we create our own. We should just move the Kurds from Syria into Yemen.
That would solve the Yemen crisis.
That would solve it, man. That's done. But anyway, yeah, I think it should be used for defensive purposes. So we should say if someone's going to try to take over one of these groups, whichever group it might be, we say no, you're not going to do that, and like. You just if you leave them alone, then we'll leave you alone. But like if you try to go after them, like we said we were going to in our agreement, then we're going to use our military power to defend this like bastion of like democracy in Asia.
I agree with the principle of what you said, but on the other hand, you've said before that you disagree with the United States' the number of military bases and this kind of neo-imperialism in the form of like just planting military bases all over the world.
Yeah, I don't think we should have military bases everywhere. I mean, if our allies want us to have military bases in there and stuff, but when we act like an occupying force, I don't agree with that.
Do you think
It's
there's
gotta be-
anywhere that we do act like an occupying force right now?
Yeah, in the Middle East, I think we certainly do. I mean, there are factions that, of course, would support us, but I don't know if the way we handle it is like I mean, a lot of people in the Middle East have like there's quotes from people basically saying like, yeah, like when I see like when it's like there's a quote that I always think of from There's a boy from, I believe, Syria, and he was basically like, yeah, when it's a cloudy day, I'm happy because that means like the drones can't fucking drop bombs on us. Basically, it was like the thing, and it's just like that kind of shit is like, yeah, if we were to like go into those places and like do humanitarian work and protect people as opposed to indiscriminately bomb like weddings and shit, then I would feel a lot better about it. But until we get to that point, like, yeah, I'm saying we got to start drawing down numbers. I don't think we need to have as much presence as we do in some of these places.
I mean, they seem to be contradictory principles, though.
Why?
Because
How so?
Well, okay. These are two different things. I mean, first of all, most of the force that's being utilized in Syria is not from the United States. Honestly, it's from Iran and it's from Russia. Like that's like 90% of like these airstrikes that are taking place.
Well, yeah, that's true. But we're also selling bombs to like terrorist groups in the Middle East, which is unheard of, and we have.
Yeah, but that's a totally different topic.
It's all the military-industrial complex. I mean, it is broadly the same topic.
Now you're talking about like commercial use. I'm talking about whether the United States should project its should the United States military the primary purpose should be to A, to protect the United States, B, to protect the United States and our allies, C, to protect the United States, its allies, and its interests.
The interest part gets real dicey because the people that often control the upper echelons of power are super corrupt, and it is a lot of it is the military-industrial complex that like Boeing and Lockheed Martin and these companies that bribe our politicians to basically go into these conflicts. And that's why you have fucking John McCain on the stage singing "Bomb, bomb, 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 bomb Iran," and it's just like, wow, it's just bad, man. That's just shitty things to do. Like, you're trying to like go start wars with countries that didn't do shit to us or necessarily like. I mean, yeah, you can talk about our allies, but like, you shouldn't just start a fucking carpet bombing campaign because you don't like those people.
I think that song. I'm pretty sure that he. That's what he said, but I don't think that's what he was saying. That let's go bomb Iran.
Okay. I don't know why he would say it if he's not in favor of it. And like,
he was singing a song, right?
Those people also lobby like you have John Bolton like going and literally calling for war with Iran in front of like groups he gets paid to speak in front of. Like, John Bolton wants to go to war with Iran.
But he's in power and he hasn't done shit.
Well, because he can't do it himself. I mean, and they're pushing for it. That's the thing is he can't just flip a switch. Like, he's got to convince.
He's got the ear of like the least stable president in American history, and like.
But that's the thing is he's so unstable that he's just a dullard, man. He like, as soon as Bolton walks out of the room, Trump's like, we're going to war, and then someone else walks in and it's like, actually, that's like a really stupid idea. Like, you're gonna like get a ton of people killed, and Trump's like, I'll think about it, and then he just forgets about it and watches Fox News.
I guess we're kind of speculating, but
yeah,
I know what you're saying, but I think that you're taking a very conspiratorial view of these things, and I think it's more nuanced. I think that
what do you how okay go ahead. Sorry.
I think that. I mean, we've had this discussion before. In almost all of these conflicts, there's not a single reason why we go into them. We're not just going into them because the military-industrial complex wants us to. We're going into them because we have political interest in the region, because we have economic interest. When I agree, I don't think economic interest is a reason to start a war in general. There's usually also local groups or local forces or allies that ask us to intervene in these situations. So it's not so simple. It's not just like Lockheed Martin's like, go bomb Iraq, and the president's like, you got it.
Yeah. That's definitely not what I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying they have a huge influence over our country. So that's why I'm saying we need to be very careful, and that's why we shouldn't create this huge presence, because once we're in there, then it gets much easier for them to go, hey, we need to this is a very dangerous situation. And I'm not saying it's just them. It's people that are paid by them and lobbyists, and it's not just the military-industrial complex either. I'm just saying it's very multifaceted, just like you're saying we go into these wars for very multifaceted reasons.
On the other hand, having troop presences in these regions can also sometimes serve as a deterrent so that conflicts don't start in the first place. Like, there's a fairly good chance that the United States having military bases in South Korea has prevented another invasion from North Korea.
Maybe. I would say also the fact that like the North Koreans are so poor and weak also factors into that.
The original Korean War was started by the North Koreans, man. Like they could, when the war ended in the armistice, basically, they could have waited a year when they were still fully armed by the Chinese and the Soviets and just invaded again. If the United States had been like, okay, now South Korea, you're on your own now. But I mean, we stuck bases there. We're like, we're not fucking leaving. Period. And that may have prevented a second invasion. Like, I'm not saying like in 1975. I mean, North Korea basically stagnated, but they were richer than South Korea, like when they originally invaded.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I'm not totally against putting military bases in places that are welcoming and that we're actually like helping an ally. Like we're not bombing indiscriminately in South Korea.
So here it gets to the complexity of it, because when we went into South Korea, when you say like there are groups that support us, the group that supported us was like a military dictatorship, like nationalist army basically. Like, who knows what like the average South Korean felt about the United States or the communists in the North for that matter. Like, I mean, the United States basically just picked one of the two shitty sides there, and it ended up working out very well for South Korea and for the United States. Now, I mean, it's a fairly healthy democracy and like a pretty thriving country, but at the time, I mean, nobody could have foreseen it. And it was basically the same thing with Taiwan for that matter. Like, basically, the United States picked a horrible dictatorship to support. Now, I mean, it's turned out nicely, but like, at the time, it was one dictatorship versus another.
Yeah, they picked a horrible dictatorship that killed it killed a lot of people, and it could be argued that it killed less people because it was in a smaller area with less population. But like, Mao Zedong killed upwards of 60 million people or something.
Well, a lot of it. I mean, to be in Mao's defense, which is, I'm probably not going to say that ever again. This wasn't like a Soviet-style purge, basically. The Cultural Revolution, he was an idiot, but he was basically hands-off. And, like, the communists were killing each other. He was irresponsible, and he indirectly led to those deaths. But he wasn't a Stalinist. He didn't have purge camps and people being executed on a daily basis. They were searching for orthodoxy, basically, and that's why I really don't like these kinds of orthodoxy tests, because it gets into the same kind of thing. So I don't think he was directly responsible for those deaths. He was the Great Leap Forward, I would say. Yeah, he was probably more responsible for that, but maybe not for like the Cultural Revolution. I mean, he was just a horrible leader who led to many deaths in the country, but I don't think he directly led to those deaths. Indirectly.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. I mean, we can. Yeah. I don't know. I think he directly led to them, but maybe not on purpose.
Okay.
He wasn't. Yeah, that's. He wasn't calling for people to be shot in the street.
He didn't deliberately lead to those deaths. Okay, let's say that he didn't. Unlike Stalin.
I would have to do more research, but I'm sure he did call for the deaths of quite a number of people. I agree. I agree with you that the difference between him and the difference between him and Stalin is definitely a well taken point. I don't know. I mean, but that's the thing is, I think these are all different situations though. Like what the U.S. is doing right now with Taiwan and China is they're sending basically naval fleets into the South China Sea. They're not like going in and invading China, which is what they're doing in a lot of other countries. And your point about deterrence, I think, is well taken. I think that's a great point. And we should put ourselves maybe in some of those situations if we're invited into those countries. But like, look at what we're doing right now with Venezuela. Like we put fucking Elliot Abrams as the fucking head envoy in Venezuela. The dude's a fucking war criminal that should be hanged at the fucking Hague.
I think it's shocking that the United States has made such strong overtures on Venezuela, yet they're so silent on Taiwan. It's really shocking to me. Like,
and that's
you have won like a legitimate election with like proof that Taiwan is a legitimate democracy and has a separate leader and a separate government that the United States refuses to recognize. Yet they recognize Guido here. Like, that's his name. Is it not?
I know.
They recognize Guido here, who basically is like, he says the election is illegitimate, whether it is or not. You can call for new elections without calling yourself the illegitimate president of the country and trying to incite a civil war. You know, it's a. I support the idea, but I think the way he's going about it is dangerous, and I think the way the United States supports them is provocative, to say the least.
Yeah, and they're lying about stuff that's going on, like being intentionally deceitful. Like they're tweeting out pictures of being like, Maduro won't let in these like our aid trucks, even though the U.S. has a huge history in Latin America of saying we're sending aid, and then they send in trucks full of weapons to give to rebels to like overthrow the fucking elected government.
I think that Maduro is a piece of shit, and I probably would say that he is responsible for stopping aid trucks, but if I had to guess, I mean, he is a piece of shit. But what I would say is that the United States, there's almost nothing they can do, because they do have the support of both Cuba and Russia, and between those two, it's just like Assad, basically. It's the same situation, and Assad is in much worse fucking shape than Maduro. Like, that country is going to burn in a civil war before that guy leaves. Now that they have Russian and Cuban support, I mean, the United States, there's absolutely nothing the United States can do. That guy's not giving up power.
Yeah, I would like to echo your claim that Maduro is a piece of shit. Fuck that guy. He's terrible. But we can't just declare that someone else is the president. Like, what if Russia or, what if most of the European Union countries are our allies, but it's just like some other country just goes, yeah, actually, we're going to recognize Nancy Pelosi as the president now.
Well, what they're saying is that the elections are illegitimate.
Yeah, but a lot of elections are illegitimate, and a lot of countries don't have fucking elections. We support Saudi Arabia. It's a fucking dictatorship. A horrible one where they cut people's heads off in the public square.
I tend to agree with you.
Don't let women fucking walk around without their faces covered. Like, fuck that shit, man. It's so hypocritical.
I tend to agree with you on this. I'd say that this was a really stupid move. I think that just kind of a knee-jerk reaction by a president who doesn't think out anything he does.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think, speaking of which, him talking about reconciling with China, the way he just plays with the markets, talking about making a deal with China, man, he needs to just say, we're not going to make a deal with China. Like,
yeah, it happens like every other day now. Yeah, it happens every other day now.
And the fact that people still listen to his dumb ass, man, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That's why I get mad at like the mainstream media, man, because they call him out more and more and like blah blah blah, but like just like a day or two ago, like there was a BBC reporter like physically assaulted at his rally, and he just basically like laughed about it and like kept going, like and the media still continues to cover him like he's like potentially some like normal president, or at least just he's just a little crazy. Like, no, the dude is a fucking madman that's like destroying our country. Like, you guys need to step up and stop being such fucking mealy-mouthed fucking... I'm gonna try not to use too many curse words. Just being like middle of the road. Oh, this is what this side says, and this is what Trump says, and this is what Cuck Schumer says. And like, we don't know. Does climate change exist? I don't know. Someone says it does, but this scientist that's paid by big oil says it doesn't. So who knows? I guess we'll never know. And it's just that kind of journalism is not. It's not journalism.
I feel like that's not common anymore. I really
feel it's more common than you think.
If you watch CNN, and I think CNN kind of stood as the middle ground for a long time, and a lot of this is, if you watch CNN now, that it doesn't seem to be the case at all.
I don't watch CNN because I have no faith in them.
Sucks.
And it does. It sucks, man. It's trash.
Yeah,
I think
Trump say the same thing.
I think it's trash news. But I think it is for a different reason. I mean, it's not the worst news, and they do the right stuff sometimes, but they still have people like Jake Tapper on there, who's a hack. The guy is a joke.
Why don't you like Jake Tapper?
Because he's just not, like, a lot of these people are just like rich people that read a teleprompter. They're not real journalists, man.
You don't think like the Young Turks is the same thing?
To some degree, but to a lesser degree. But Young Turks is definitely not I disagree with them on a lot of stuff, especially like the Russia stuff. I think they're way too gung-ho about that.
What do you mean?
No,
what do you mean?
They're like really on the Russiagate tip, and I'm not. I don't go so far as they do on
Russiagate. What do you mean? Oh, like
the Trump is a Putin puppet is like they're really. not everyone. Like obviously the hosts are varied, and that's the thing is like I like that they like actually like they'll give evidence and then give their opinion and like they're honest about it and like it's not I don't know it's just like they're kind of upfront with like what they actually think, whereas like these people try to a lot of the people on mainstream news just like try to pretend like they're like totally unbiased and what they do is they mistake like neutrality for like an unbiased opinion.
Well, yeah, we've had this discussion before, but I think that's first of all, it depends who you watch. So these networks have a lot of people doing a lot of different things, but I think that the viciousness with that they go after certain people and actually the access that they have makes it a pretty good network in general. Because yeah, you can have people who have like strong opinions and maybe like they might show their feelings about it a little more, but these guys, some of them are very tenacious reporters and they get access to very important people. So
yeah, I have a little bit of a problem with like access journalism because that's what it breeds. It's just this culture of like the cocktail circuit where we're all, you know, we'll call you out in public, but like actually, you know, we're going to the same cocktail parties and, you know, we're pretty friendly with each other. And so they don't call these people out who are like real monsters. Trump is a little bit set aside from that, but like people like Marco Rubio and like these ghouls on the right, fucking Mitch Turtlehead McConnell, like, and they're just like, oh, you know, Mitch McConnell, like, we don't agree with what he did here, but I had drinks with him last night, and he's a pretty nice guy. And it's just like, I don't care that he's a nice guy.
What are you talking about? What reporter would say something
it's
like
not,
that?
Of course they wouldn't say that, but that's what they do. Like, they all go to the same parties. They're in the DC, like, elitist bubble. These people are all super rich and, like, are all kind of buddies.
That's how the world works, man.
Well, I don't agree with it, and that's why I don't support those networks, and I think that I mean, I'm not saying CNN is like complete trash. Like, they do good journalism sometimes, just like a lot of the mainstream networks. But a lot of the times they don't, and I think that they fail in doing their job. With as much money and resources that they have, they could be doing so much more investigative journalism, but instead they give Trump millions of dollars of free media in the 2016 elections. Like, that you completely fumbled your job and like literally helped Trump get elected. So I don't have time for that.
That's an argument
shit,
to
man.
be made. But
I don't have time for it, man.
I mean, the left and the right did the same fucking thing basically in this. Like, this is not like a partisan thing, man.
What do you mean?
What basic your argument is that by covering this guy that they got him elected, but I feel like that's the job of the fucking media is to cover stories. Like,
I'm okay. So I'm not saying they got him elected. I'm saying part of what they did helped him, because literally there were times when CNN would live stream an empty Donald Trump podium while Bernie Sanders was giving a speech.
Well, that's irresponsible management.
It's irresponsible, and they gave Trump literally millions of dollars in free media, where they barely covered Bernie Sanders at all, who was running an unbelievable campaign where he basically was like scoffed at and almost beat Hillary Clinton.
You're talking about like 3 years ago now, though. So I mean, maybe the environment's changed since then. And I'm
sure it has to some degree, but again, just recently, Jake Tapper was basically talking shit about Ilhan Omar because she wouldn't talk to the reporter who was basically Trump called you an anti-Semite, and was basically kept running her down in the hallway, and she was like, yo dude, he kept asking her about her tweets, and she's like, yeah, you can read the tweets, leave me alone, I'm trying to fucking do my job. And then Jake Tapper's like, she wouldn't answer, she's being obfuscating and all this shit, and it's just fuck you, dude,
I don't see
you're
why that's
a
a bad
fucking
thing,
paid
man.
actor.
That's their job, is to go be fucking journalists and ask people questions and harass the shit out of people.
But that's not what Tapper was doing. He was just talking shit about Ilhan Omar. And it's just fuck you, dude. She's actually trying to do something, and she was the one that went out and called out Elliot Abrams about being a fucking war criminal, while you're just sitting in there and being I don't know, some people say he's a war criminal and some people say that he's a nice guy. And it's just
well, that's a dumb thing to say. Well, okay, first of all,
I'm not saying he said that exactly, but that's the vibe I get every time I watch that shit.
I think that you have a bit of prejudice against them in general. It sounds
I do.
like.
Yeah. Admittedly so.
I think you should keep a little bit more of an open mind.
That's the thing is I used to watch all the mainstream stuff, and I try to keep an open mind, and if they do good work, I will give them credit for it, and they have. And that's what I'm saying is I'm not saying they're the worst thing, but I think there's better media out there. I think YouTube new media is better, and if they get like most of the time once or twice a week when there's like or like there's a good interview on CNN, not just single CNN now, like MSNBC, all of those, then it will get covered and it'll be shown on like the new media stuff. But like I don't know, I don't agree with the takes. And also I think print media is better in general. Also,
You mean the newspaper? Because I know you read the papers.
I love reading the papers. No, yeah, I mean like
LTN
I don't
for
know.
life.
I try to read a lot more. I watch a lot on YouTube because it's easy to listen to when I'm driving like to and from work, which is a lot of my time. And then also like when I'm not like reading print, like I'm writing an article right now and I've read like probably 30 or 40 articles for it, and some of them are good and some of them are absolute trash, but on the whole it's like better journalism than and I think it's part of it is not necessarily their fault. It's just the way it's set up. When you have a 24-hour news cycle, it's just you have to just pump out trash all the time. But
More or less, yeah.
yeah, so it's not necessarily all their fault, but it's just kind of the way that it's been done. I don't know.
All right, I guess
But
we got to get on the hot topic.
Are we gonna do it?
That's what you wanted. It's a sensitive topic, but
Yeah, I want to hear your opinions.
my opinions are that basically I think she kind of like she made a dumb tweet and she probably handled it the right way because she did come out and apologize for it. Did she not?
She did, yeah. She apologized.
Then I think that should probably be the end of it. I don't think that she meant to be anti-Semitic. I think that Jews also need to be careful playing the victim card in general because nobody likes like an internal victim. Because while I say that, you look at the entire every single political group in the United States right now, it plays the eternal victim, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Republican Party says that they're the victim of like, you know, the
war
liberal
on Christmas.
media, the liberal media, basically.
Yeah.
The left,
liberal Hollywood and
No, I'm saying the left on the United States acts like they're the victim of a racist minority of Americans who basically want to make everyone, you know, a sterilized straight housewife.
I think I think some of those calls are a little more valid than others, but
I think
yeah,
both
get
of
what you're
those
saying.
claims are completely illegitimate. I think white people think that they're the victims of like an entitlement complex that hurts them and gives opportunities to people who didn't earn who don't think that they need to earn their fucking benefits in life. I think that minority people think that they're the victims of a system that's continues to marginalize them, like no matter how much more opportunity they have. I think that
Yeah, but would you argue that that the system is not racist?
I would say everyone is about 2% right, and that everyone needs to just stop feeling bad for themselves a little bit.
Nah, I don't know. When it comes to like minority communities, I feel a lot more sympathy for them than the people in power claiming that they're being.
We're not talking about the people in power. I'm talking like look at the reason Trump got elected, man. Like the Midwest, basically. Those aren't people in power. Poor Rust Belt whites who basically like, I mean, they just lost in the manufacturing shift over to Asia. I mean, they.
Yeah, I feel sympathy for them as well. Like
So
they are.
Everyone needs
The
to.
way they go about it is not necessarily right, but they did get fucked over.
Anyway, I think that everyone needs to feel like a victim, and she's feeling like a victim too. And I think like the entire reason this started is because she was claiming that people were going after her because, you know, of all the lobbyist money, and she gives some of the same arguments that you typically give, that basically money buys politics, but she's not a commentator. She's an elected politician. So she needs to be careful with her words, in my opinion, and she made a mistake. So I think
Okay, I mean, I somewhat agree. I don't know. What do you think was the thing that she said that was wrong?
first of all, she's claimed that she's making basically accusations that there's a quid pro quo between lobbying efforts, which APAC actually doesn't do. APAC is not a lobbying group, period. APAC
Yeah, but they
give
money. They give a lot of money to PACs. A lot.
They don't give any political donations, period, themselves.
They
They
funnel money through that organization to PACs. They gave $3.5 million to PACs last year.
That doesn't mean anything specifically, and that completely defeats the whole purpose of her idea that there's a quid pro quo in place. Giving money to PACs does not buy you, like
the pro-Israel lobby does give a lot of money to politicians, and those are varying groups. There are groups, and I talk about this in my article that's not finished yet, but there are groups that are good because they're trying to like get peace in the Middle East, but there are groups that are like pro-Israel, being like,
there's a lot of money flowing in a lot of places. I agree with you on that. She played into some dangerous tropes by basically linking into this old stereotype that there's kind of the Elders of Zion complex, that basically the Jews control the economy and that the Jews control the spheres of influence with these like small pockets of money where they have influence. And I think
go ahead.
You can go.
I was just gonna say, I think her first tweet was like more potentially hazardous than the other ones. I mean, and she came out and apologized for that, like basically like right when people started calling her out for it, which was like 6 years after the fact.
I don't think she meant to play into these, to be 100% honest. I think that it was just not an uncareful statement, and it's good she apologized, and that should probably be the end of it. But
yeah, I don't know. I tend to be like, I don't even know if I think because of the way that the whole situation is, that like, yeah, you kind of got to apologize, but like I don't think she's wrong. Like, of course, like I don't think that like Jews control the world. I think honestly America in a lot of ways controls Israel and uses them as a proxy state in the Middle East. But I don't think that like the Jews like run the world, or like any of these stupid fucking out of date stereotypes are true. Obviously,
you'd be surprised how many people do believe this. So.
I know. No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't be surprised. Like I've watched enough conspiracy videos to know that I'm not surprised by it. But go ahead.
You continue. Finish what you're saying.
Just I think that her idea is right. Like it really is. It's about money. Like of course not everything is about money, but money in politics is super corrupting. It's like that's why there's a Princeton study that said that the U.S. operates more like an oligarchy than a democracy in a lot of cases because of the money in politics. Wherever the big lobbies and the big corporations want America to go, that's generally where it goes.
The fact that so that may be true. The fact that she's bringing up this issue and the kind of the words that she used, some people said that she was knowingly playing into some stereotypes, using specific words like, it's all about the Benjamins, baby, like that kind of thing, saying that like can you understand why that could be construed?
I can understand how it can be construed, but I don't think that's what she meant, and so that gets again into your thing about playing the victim, and I think that victim complex thing is well taken. Like when it's taken out of context, like just like it's the same thing as like Hillary, man, like calling Bernie supporters sexist. It's just like if you continue to do this boy cries wolf shit, then that's why the right wing doesn't. Well, most of them are hacks anyway, but like that's why like people in the middle who really are like open minded are not going to take you seriously when there's real calls for. They'll say that's not sexism, and so then they start to believe, oh well, maybe there's no sexism. And same thing with calls for racism or anti-Semitism, which are all real things. All those things exist, and we should do everything we can do to get rid of them because they're horrible, disgusting things.
The bigger issue, I think, is not only did she make these tweets, which she may or may not have understood this at all, but she didn't back down. Basically, the third tweet that she made it in regards to this, somebody had already said that she was tweeting anti-Semitic tropes. So instead of being like, "Oh, I'm sorry," she continued, and that's when she said APAC, basically. So like I can read you the second tweet. He said that the end of it says that's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted. So instead of saying, "Oh, oops, I didn't realize," maybe I should think about it. She's just like, "No, it's APAC,"
Well, she had already apologized for the first one, and I think
No. She apologized after this.
no. She apologized for the first one when she was running for election. The first one was it was something about like Israel has hypnotized the world, and someone was like, they called her out basically and said like, actually like I didn't know this either until I started doing the research for the article, but like hypnotism is like somehow like a anti-Jewish stereotype that I didn't know about. Like basically like the Jews like hypnotize people or something. I don't know.
This is all just kind of like language that refers to the protocols of the elders of Zion. This old Nazi era like forgery basically. They said that that the Jews basically have like a secret council that they aim to control like white leaders and basically to control the money supply and control the world.
Well, yeah, I know about that. I mean, those are like the big tropes, and like that, they control like banking and big business, blah 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 blah. But my question would be, so one, she quoted lyrics from a song. That's a song.
Well, okay,
it is
maybe not.
Well, maybe not, because it is really a song.
Yeah, but every sentence is in a song somewhere. Like, I mean,
it's a popular.
I've never heard of that song.
It's a P Diddy song. I mean, I don't like P Diddy, so I never listened to it either. But
I've never heard of that song.
Okay, that's fine. But I mean, what about that is like if she would have been like, "Cash rules everything around me," would that have been less?
The idea is that. I guess the way it was construed is that it wasn't about money and politics. Basically, it was saying that the Jews, and I say this in like the way that they construe this. The idea is that the Jews used their money to control politics.
Yeah, and
like a capital J.
But I don't see. The thing is, I would say. I mean, you can never know exactly what someone means, but I would say almost 100% that's not what she meant. And
the bigger thing is her identity. I say
that about a lot of groups. Yeah, but see, then you're getting into identity politics. Because
I agree with you. That's a huge part of this, man. And she's like the epitome of the new wave of the Democratic Party and this push towards identity politics. So she's like the first headgear wearing member of Congress. I think she's a Muslim from Somalia.
Yeah, she's the first woman to wear a hijab in Congress.
So that automatically exacerbates like any of these kinds of claims because it almost looks like this is, I mean,
yeah.
You get what I'm saying.
Your point is well taken, but the problem is that the racism actually, like, of course, anti-Semitism is real, and I think there are a ton of anti-Semitic people in the U.S., and fuck all of them. I mean, if you want to talk about anti-Semitism, Donald Trump said a bunch of anti-Semitic things, and so do all the
Donald
right.
Trump is a piece of shit. They were cheering,
and so are the alt-right people screaming, "The Jews will not replace us" at fucking Charlottesville. But my point is that there's also been consistent racism in the form of calling people who have are of Muslim descent or are actually in fact Muslims anti-Semitic in the form of Keith Ellison, who was the first Muslim. They smeared him as anti-Semitic. Ilhan Omar and also Rashida Tlaib. Like all three of them have already been smeared as anti-Semites. And those two, the last two that I mentioned, the two women, they've barely been in Congress for like less than a few months. And it's just like you're already like smearing them as anti-Semitic, which I don't think they are. And
that may be true, but they're not being careful to avoid controversy. That's for sure.
Yeah, but that's the thing is, you just said like everyone wants to play the victim, so should everyone just try to be careful as to not be called out?
I think that you need to find a balance. You need to find a balance, basically, and for somebody who you think like. Basically, someone from her background, like a Somali immigrant from basically like a Minnesota district. You'd think that she would probably be one of the first people to be called out for making something that could even vaguely be construed as anti-Semitic. You would think she would be careful with like the kind of shit that she says in regards to talking about Jewish money in politics.
I guess, but that's not the culture on Twitter either, though. It's just like you see something and you clap back, and I agree that like to some degree you have to be somewhat careful.
Not only that, she's a
representative,
congressperson now. She's not like a radio TV show host or something like that, or like she's not a media person, man. She's a U.S. congresswoman. So like, can't you expect like decorum? And I agree with you. Donald Trump has completely shattered that. But like I don't think it was too bad, but I think she should have been more careful. And I think that should be the end of this. And I think,
Okay.
yeah.
That's fair. I would.
You're saying that she didn't do anything wrong. That may be the case, but the fact that some people construed it that she did something wrong, the fact that she apologized made it okay, and that should be the end. And she should be careful in the future too.
What I would say about that is people construe, like I said, the Hillary Clinton thing. She construed it as being as sexist. So should Bernie apologize for that?
It depends. What? Give me the context of what happened.
Well, there's a number of things. Basically, like the fact that like he ran against her. Like a lot of people were saying, like it's sexist. You're trying to stop
running against someone is not sexist. Like, listen, I mean,
well, neither is calling out corruption because of money that is funneled into the U.S.
She wasn't calling out corruption. She was calling out a specific instance of supposedly that a specific group of people that already have negative stereotypes in regards to them and their control of politics through money, and she called out them specifically. So she wasn't saying, we need to get money out of politics, hashtag MAGA. She was saying like, I mean, what she said, man. Like it was provocative.
Yeah, I know what she said. I don't think it was that provocative, but I can understand how people misconstrue it, but as soon as she says, I wasn't trying to be anti-Semitic, I don't have a history of anti-Semitism, and I think that anti-Semitism is real, then people should be like, all right, cool, it's done.
But she does have a history. That was the thing. She already issued like a tweet that she got called out for a few years ago. This is not the first time. Like
it was the second time, and it was basically the same thing. It's a consistent message of that like basically like the government in Israel. She's not talking about Jewish people, and I get that it's it's an ethno state, and so that complicates things a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, are we not allowed to criticize Israel? Can we not criticize the shit government that they have, just like we criticize our own?
You certainly can, but that's not what she was criticizing. That's not what she was criticizing. She was criticizing Jewish.
The first tweet she was
criticizing Jewish money in America. She was criticizing how Jewish money influences the opinion of Americans.
Yeah, she was criticizing the pro-Israeli lobby, which is pro the Israeli government, which is I feel like you're splitting hairs here. And the first tweet she was calling out the government of Israel. The second tweet is a little more vague.
Okay, what it was referring to, I read you the what she was responding to.
The Greenwald tweet.
Yeah.
Is that what
you have it in front of you?
No, I don't. Go ahead.
It's stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech rights of Americans. So what she's implying, because it's illegal for a foreign state to spend money lobbying in the United States. So what she's implying is that American Jews, okay, by extension, is that American Jews are spending money to influence American policy, so that it's all about their Benjamins. They're using their money in order to buy influence.
Which I think is not completely wrong, but she was talking about the state. He said Glenn Greenwald's tweet was about the state of Israel.
About the state of Israel, but she's implying with AIPAC, because AIPAC, again, foreigners, Israelis, are not allowed to spend money in the United States. In order for that money to be spent, it's being done by American Jews. I mean, and I'm sure as a congressperson, she understood that. She understood the implication.
Yeah, I'm sure she did, but I don't think that that's an incorrect statement. It might not have been like the most careful statement, but I think the snowflakery and like we need to tiptoe around everything is like worn a little bit thin. But I do agree. I mean, I believe in the article I said like, I can understand how this was misconstrued, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of people that are being very disingenuous about this.
Yeah, I think a lot of the Republican Party is just like taking the bait, and they're just like, let's utilize this. I think, like I said, I think she apologized, and that should be the end of it. And I think that like Mike Pence and a lot of these people are pushing this way too far. But I think that the notion that you can separate Israel and Jews is a false one, because I think in most countries the link has already been made, just like the link has already been made between Islam and support for the state of Palestine. Because I mean, you look at the countries around the world. I mean, most majority Muslim countries in the world still have no relations with the state of Israel over the Palestine issue, and they have they have no major interest in the Arab regions. It's simply religious. They feel religious solidarity with the Palestinians. I'm talking about countries like Indonesia, Bangladesh, Malaysia. You're literally not allowed to enter those countries if you've been to Israel, if you have an Israeli stamp in your passport, or if you have an Israeli passport. They've completely cut off relations just because of their religion. So I think that they are integrally linked.
Yeah, but I think that it has to be like a very measured thing to say, like, well, we still have to be able to condemn Israel when they do bad
You're absolutely
shit.
right. Yeah. You can. Well, okay, it's one thing to criticize the state. It's another thing to criticize the government. But you have to understand it also.
What is the? Oh, you okay? Yeah, okay.
So
I understand what you're saying.
I mean, the context. Okay, look at the UK. Basically, the UK has a very, very different stance towards Israel, basically, than the United States. In the United States, the majority of people basically support American support of Israel. In the UK, that percentage is like the percentage that think that Israel is basically an illegal state, and that Zionism, the notion that there should be a Jewish state, is itself racist, is supported by probably 50% of the head of the Labour Party basically came out and said that in the past. So to say that the notion that that Jewish people should be able to have their own state is itself racist.
I think what they're saying is that, I don't know. I think
what
they're saying is more that, like, to be able to, like, claim that, like, they have this, like, right to this land.
No, that's like, not at all what they're saying. The idea is that they think that Jews don't have, that they're not a real ethnic subgroup, that they should integrate into with Western populations and kind of disappear. Basically, go back to Eastern Europe. And
I would like to see some quotes on that.
I can find you some quotes, man.
Okay.
That's basically what a lot of the literature says, that the Jewish people are, well, at least for the most part, are more ethnically European than they are ethnically Semitic. That they have no right or land claim to their own country.
Yeah, but I think that gets into it though. Is like, why do they have a right to that land? I mean, now it's done. Like, they've already set it's been set up, and so, like, but like,
yeah, these claims were made like in the last 10 years. This is long after the foundation of Israel.
I know.
So they're trying to delegitimize the existing state. Why do they have a right to the state? Why does anyone have a right to any state, basically? They had been settling there for, first of all, it's not like after 1948 they just suddenly popped in there. Jews had been settling in whatever, mandatory Palestine, in the British territory there, for nearly a century before the end of World War II. They had a heavy presence there, and that's why the original mandatory Palestine draw tried to separate Jewish villages, which had existed there previously, from Palestinian villages. So the original layout may have, like, relocated some people, but it was supposed to split it up, basically, between the Palestinians, who had also legitimately been living there, and the Israeli Jew settlers, who had also legitimately living there, both of whom had legitimately been living there for at least decades, if not hundreds of years.
Yeah, I think what people get upset about now is that Israel keeps expanding its territory.
That is a claim to be made, but I mean, their original losses in terms of outside of the 1967 borders, I mean, were a direct result of the war that they started in order to eradicate the Jews from the land after 1948. They being every single Arab state in the region. Jordan, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure of Saudi Arabia. every single one basically tried to invade to take a piece, and they weren't going to give it to the Palestinians, by the way. Palestine was also supposed to be wiped from the earth, and the people would just be like, whatever, allowed to remain there, but they weren't going to be given their own state. So basically, I mean, yeah. So the land changed, the shape of the borders changed, but they willingly, yeah. I'm not going to get any deeper than I should, but I mean this wasn't like a forcible invasion. It's not like the Jews just moved in with their bags after World War II and they're like, get the fuck out of our land. That's not at all what happened. And anyone who says that is giving a false narrative.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know as much about that as you do. But I would say the claims that they keep, I don't know, expanding, and I don't really agree with that, and seizing of other people's lands. And also, yeah, no one has, I mean, if they're just saying like no one has a right to land, like just like the United States does, then I agree with that. But like to say that, I wouldn't go so far as to say that we need to dismantle the Israeli state. I don't think that's how that works.
I think I agree. I think that I'm fairly moderate in that. I think that, I mean, I don't see how this is fairly moderate. I think this is the mainstream position, that there needs to be a two-state solution, basically, and that Israeli settlements in the West Bank should probably be evacuated, almost certainly, in order to make room for a Palestinian state.
Yeah, I think they should, and I think I at one point was like, didn't know if I believed in a one or two state solution, but I think there's absolutely no way, at least in the current climate, that there could be any sort of semblance of a one state solution.
No, I think that
it
would end in genocide.
Yeah, I agree.
There needs to be
or at least a complete like disenfranchisement of Palestinians, which would be like a soft end and probably a soft.
I think
genocide.
It would be way worse than that. I think it would end worse than that.
That's fair. I definitely wouldn't put that off the table, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. I really wanted to, I was interested in your thoughts on that whole situation. But do you have anything else to say about that?
I wish this kind of shit didn't happen.
Agreed.
I think that I also hope that the United States, I think that there is a lot of this like victimization complex, and I think that Israelis need to lighten up to criticism of the government and the choices of its government. They're not. It's not inherently anti-Semitic to criticize Israel. I fully accept that notion, and
it's not. So yeah,
it's not. However, that's not to say that criticism of Israel cannot be anti-Semitic, because
for sure, yeah,
because a lot of it, especially like a lot of the rhetoric that you see in the UK and that you see coming from, actually it's more virulent in the UK now than it almost is in a lot of the Arab states, because it comes from, I don't know why, I think a lot of people who come from Arab states and move to the UK have more extreme political ideas than people who still live in Arab states. So I think that a lot of it is dangerous, and basically it is revisionist. They want to basically say that Israel is not a legitimate state and that it needs to be eradicated, and that the people need to go live back in in Ukraine or wherever the fuck they came from. Yeah. Prior to World War II, which is itself a nonsense claim, because people in Israel are right now came from so many different countries, and it's not like majority Eastern European. I mean,
yeah.
They come from across the Middle East, including countries where if they went back, they would be killed, like Iraq, Iran, Tunisia, Yemen.
Yeah, I think it's absurd to try to. That's a stupid idea to try to dismantle the state and like get rid of, disperse the Jews. But yeah, I don't know. It's very complicated, and I think that these are the facts on the ground now. It's the same thing as the U.S. Like the U.S. is not going to vacate and go back to Europe. Like all the white people are not going to go back to Europe, and all the African Americans that were largely stolen from African countries as slaves, like they're not going to go back to Africa. It's absurd because it just doesn't make sense. But we need to like deal with the facts on the ground, and I don't know. I think your point. You make good points there. I mostly agree with you on all that.
So I also hope in the future that some of the Arab states help to make this happen, and I hope Netanyahu's done after this election. But
Amen.
But I think that I hope Abbas is done too. I think that you need
Yeah,
some fresh blood,
same.
and I think that the Arabs need to try and help this situation along because they've made this situation so much worse in a lot of ways. They could offer lots of different like benefits and ways to control like the situation here and stabilize the situation that they really haven't. How about instead of having like Israeli peacekeepers sitting in like the West Bank, that Jordan agrees to provide some kind of like some of their military force, even if you just have Jordanian troops paid for by the Israelis. Like I think that would make a huge difference, and it would be seen less as an occupying force. Or how about if Egypt was willing to give up a piece of like the Sinai territory to expand Gaza so that the Gazans aren't basically trapped in this little place. That they have a little bit more living room because you have 2 million people crammed into like basically a parking lot sized area. I mean,
What would you be in favor of Israel giving up some of its territory as well?
Israel has almost no territory to begin with. If you actually look at the size of the land, it's preposterous. Like Egypt is completely filled with empty desert and has. I don't see why Israel should have to be the one who has to give up land if they're already giving up the West Bank. I mean, look at the map, basically.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the map, Israel at its widest point, if they give up the West Bank, is like 9 kilometers wide, which is basically like the distance from Zhongli to the ocean.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the entire width of the state. It's not a lot of land. Like, if that's what it takes to get peace, then maybe it should be considered. But I don't. That's a frightening prospect to have. I mean, basically, like if there were to be a conflict, they could split the country in half easily by taking just a small strip of land that's like 9 kilometers. I mean, it's insane to me. It's insane. I think it's probably a non-starter. If you just look at the map and look at all the empty fucking land in Jordan, in Egypt, in Saudi Arabia, I think they could expand in another direction a lot easier, and there would be a lot more people. I think they have a lot less to lose than Israel does.
Okay, that's
That would be my opinion. Just look at it. Just look at a satellite map.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I've seen the map. It's.
For instance, okay, Israel used to control the Sinai Peninsula, and they gave it up. They gave it back to Egypt in order to get peace, basically. The Sinai Peninsula is bigger than Israel itself.
Yeah,
They've already given up like a shitload of land. Like, why don't you give the Gazans and the West Bank, give them the entire fucking Sinai? Like, see if Egypt even cares, man. Egypt fucking hates the Sinai.
Yeah.
Like, that would be a better fucking proposal.
Yeah, the problem is like getting people to agree to that sort of shit.
I mean, they wouldn't, because right now, I mean, most of the people in the Gaza Strip basically still claim that the land in Israel is theirs. Which, that's debatable, and I'm sure every person has their own respective claims, but, I mean, that's an extreme claim. That's a pretty extreme claim.
Yeah. It's fair. That place is a big fucking mess.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the Middle East in general, and a lot of that is due to a lot of factors, both internally and externally.
It's true, but I think that it would help a lot if the Palestinians want more land and Israel wants more safety, then maybe just like cut out a piece and create a demilitarized zone to separate the territories. And then cut them out some extra land out of Egypt and Jordan. I mean, basically, there are more Palestinians living in Jordan than there are Jordanians living in Jordan already.
Yeah.
I don't see what the big deal is for Jordan. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
People get defensive about their land, man.
It's true.
So.
It's true.
But yeah, I would tend to agree with you that it would make more sense just to, give a little bit. But it's really hard to get people to give up a piece, even if it in turn would actually end up helping for peace and prosperity for all.
Well, with these countries, most of these Arab countries, what they really just want is like money and stability. And I feel like the Israelis could help them on that. But
there you go with your anti-Jewish tropes about the Jews having all the money.
I mean, well, that's
just kidding,
man.
I'm just
okay,
kidding.
You look at
I'm just kidding. I know they're obviously a prosperous nation, and part of that is because of their relationship with with the United States.
Part of it is, but also part of it is that like they have basically a functioning democracy, and that they have a functional education system. So like, they've got higher education rates than the United States in terms of how many kids go to college there. So they have like a huge high tech industry and shit. Meanwhile, their next door neighbors include Syria, who's been in a civil war for the last 8 years, Egypt, who also has been in a pseudo civil war for the last 8 years, and Jordan, who still has a fucking king.
Yeah.
So like,
absolutely right.
You're not competing against healthy democracies. And meanwhile, Lebanon, which has been occupied by like 4 armies in the last 50 years, and also had a civil war in the last 30 years.
No.
And it basically has a terrorist group as one of the largest parties in their parliament. So they're not surrounded by healthy countries. So they have a lot to help their neighbors with if their neighbors would be willing to take the help and would be willing to give something in return.
See, I bet that a lot of the people on the ground, if they were sold like a decent like pitch on that, would be. But again, to your point that you just made, they're not democracies, so a lot of those places don't really have a choice. A lot of the people don't have a choice. The governments, of course, do.
Well, the governments, I mean, basically try to cater to the people in a lot of these circumstances. Like Syria, look at Syria. I mean, Syria is a dictatorship. Syria has never had to cater to its people, and they would have had probably a lot more to gain by allying with Israel. But the reason they didn't is because they were caught in like the Soviet-U.S. balance, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah. That's right.
But some of these countries...
And they still are.
I mean, 2 of them do have peace treaties with Israel. So it's not like they're... I don't know. It's not like they stand to lose that much. But there's a lot of pride. There's a hatred of Israel that's very deep in a lot of these places.
Yeah. That's how a lot of that stuff works, man. Memories last a long time.
I mean, they forget that they're the ones who invaded in the first place.
Yeah.
Like, but also, I mean, okay, for instance, like in a lot of Syrian fighters, and I don't know the exact details of this because a lot of it is kind of shady and it's done through the Israeli press, but supposedly a lot of Syrian fighters go into Israel basically to get treatment, and the United States, I mean, not the United States, Israel obviously does not like the Syrian regime, so they'll treat the rebel fighters for free and then send them back to the front, basically. But then if they're Syrian commanders, or if like other people find out that they were getting Israeli treatment, then they can get like killed or something.
Oh wow, interesting.
Weird shit, man.
Yeah, that's crazy business.
I don't know what that has to do with anything, actually.
I guess interesting. It doesn't matter. It's still connected.
It talks about the hatred, I guess.
Yeah, it talks about
the complicated relationships.
No. If it's anything, it's definitely complicated. That's for sure. Oh well. Thanks, Ari, for the history lesson. I like that.
You should look up the history. The history is interesting. Israel is not a perfect state, but like
I've definitely read some on it, but it's not the main focus of my historical analysis for sure. But yeah, I need to check. I need to do more history in general on the Middle East. But yeah, Israel is definitely an interesting little place.
I need to go in a few minutes.
All right. Is there anything you want to talk? Oh, I gotta go get Abby. I thought she was gonna be here for the podcast, but she took her like an hour to park.
Ha ha ha.
So.
Oh shit. That was my phone.
Maybe we'll just go eat dinner or something then. All right. You got anything you want to talk about real quick?
Real quick.
Like 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Yeah. Tsai Ing-wen should address Congress.
Fuck yeah, man. Shit, yeah, she could. She should. Man, that would be awesome. I would be so pumped.
It'd be good for everyone, I feel like, including China.
I totally agree. I really hope that happens. We'll see, but I don't know, man. Let's cross our fingers on that one. What do you think the likelihood of that actually happening is?
Fairly low because of all these fucking, like, Chinese apologists.
Who do you consider as a Chinese apologist?
Donald Trump.
He doesn't know what he thinks.
Yeah, he on one hand he thinks Xi Jinping is his best friend, and then on the other hand he thinks he's trying to double cross him. And on the other hand, he thinks what's his name? Kim Jong-un is his good friend too. So they can't all be his friends.
It's true.
I don't know. I think that I was shocked at how many people. I really, like I said, I need to post those 2 rebuttal articles because I was shocked how this kind of stuff can be printed, man. How you could be so naive, apologetic, and accommodationist towards a dictatorial, genocidal regime. I don't understand that. China is a monster regime. Basically, okay. I mean, the thrust of the argument that he gave is that if they do anything against China with regards to Taiwan to piss off China, they're going to lose their cooperation on North Korea, number one, and they're going to lose their cooperation on the trade deal. Both of which China has no incentive to participate with them on anyways. First of all, North Korea, the entire reason North Korea still exists, hasn't collapsed into the ground, is because of Chinese oil that basically fueled their entire nuclear program for the past 25 fucking years.
That's right.
So you can thank China for the nuclear program, and now we want their help. Now we think they're going to cooperate because what? Because we give them Taiwan on a silver platter. How naive and childish can you be? They're going to turn around and stab us right in the back like they always have.
Yeah, when has China ever been a fucking
never
an honest actor? Never. Yeah,
not only, I mean, they have a history of threatening nuclear war against mutual nuclear war against the United States, Yeah. So, why the hell would they help us with North Korea? And second of all, in regards to the trade war, if we really want a resolution of the trade war, then just fucking, end the trade war. The trade war was initiated by Donald Trump. You think he's gonna, you think China is gonna negotiate Taiwan, their prized possession, over the fucking trade war? Yeah, they'll give us all kinds of trade shit. Does democracy mean anything anymore? Does freedom mean anything?
Not to the Republicans, most of them anyway.
I have to say, man, a lot of the Republicans are much stronger in Taiwan than the Democrats are. Most of the people who signed on calling for Taiwan to come were Republican senators. So I'll give them that. That's
the only thing I give a lot of them. I tweeted, I think it was Rubio today, and I was like he said something about Taiwan, and I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm agreeing with this piece of shit, but I guess I am.
Rubio is one of the strongest guys on Taiwan there is, man.
And he's in essentially every other fucking facet, he's just an absolute piece of shit.
I am no Rubio fan, but I like I like how defensive he is over what I consider one of the most crucial moral issues. And it's not just I mean, I've had personal experience obviously, and I have my own bias, but I don't see how you can just ignore this issue when you're going to talk about humanitarian crises in other places. If you're going to talk about the usurpation of democracy in Venezuela, and then you have people from fucking liberal think tanks in the United States basically saying, the reason that China hasn't yet been able to come to a deal with Taiwan is that they haven't given Taiwan a good enough deal. They need to give them a slightly better deal than they gave Hong Kong, and then they'll come around
to join an authoritarian fucking regime that hates them.
That's basically what they said, man. These people are saying that, we really don't want war and we really don't want trouble with China, so we just need to help China come up with a nice attractive deal so they can rope Taiwan in for an eternity of domination and authoritarian, totalitarian misery.
Concentration camps for the people.
Concentration camps, yeah. The eradication of an entire country's culture in a matter of weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
What kind of monster do you have to be to say that kind of stuff? A completely morally bankrupt person.
Yeah, 100%. Or best case scenario, you're just absolutely ignorant on the issue and you still open your mouth about it.
If anyone, after watching what happened with Hong Kong, number one, but even if you look at Xinjiang or Tibet and the absolute rancor, the complete disregard for human lives, massacres, genocides, concentration camps, police state that has been initiated in these places, forced disappearances. If anyone looked at is even partially conscious of what took place, how could you even suggest that any country should even be pressured into joining?
You're evil. I don't know.
Much less coerced. I mean, this guy is a piece of work. And he needs to be taken down a peg, if he could be.
I totally concur. He will be once he gets out of office, at least.
He's not in office, man. He's an academic.
Oh wait, who did you say? I thought you were still talking about Trump.
No.
Are you talking about the guy that wrote that article? That
Yeah. You should read his pieces and just watch how fast your blood boils, man.
Is that the same one that you showed me before?
I don't know.
You showed me someone's article before, and I almost lost my mind. I couldn't read all of it. It's just so dumb.
You can read one of my drafts. My draft about the
Oh yeah, I saw it was up on the site.
His name is something Bush. He's one of the Bushes.
Gross.
He's a monster, man.
All right, so that's a plug. Everyone go read our articles. I posted one recently. I'm about to post another one about Omar and the pro-Israel lobby and all the stuff we basically talked about tonight, plus more details on some of that stuff. But Ari, you got to post those articles soon so everyone can read them.
I will.
All right, we'll get it up for you guys. Don't forget to everyone. You need to invite your friends to like the page. We're at 96 likes on Facebook, and don't forget to follow our Twitter too. So we're trying to get over 100 on Facebook, and we're trying to get over 27 on Twitter. So
what he means is 100,000 and 27,000.
Yeah, that's right. 100,000. We're trying to break 100,000. If we do, we get some more. We can start getting some ad revenue, and then we'll grow the podcast. All right. Well, I'll let you go. I think Abby's here, so if you come back home tonight and want to do another podcast, round 2, let me know.
What are we going to talk about?
I don't know. We can get Abby to talk about something.
Yeah, right. Can I take a shower?
Exactly. All right. Well, I'll let you go, man. We'll chop it up again soon.
All right.
All right. Peace, buddy.
Later, man.
Bye-bye. There was everybody. That's episode 25 in the books for y'all. So we really appreciate you guys coming in, downloading the podcast, listening. If you listen here on your favorite podcast addict, on YouTube, wherever it is, we do appreciate you guys listening. We, obviously we gotta do the whole thing. You gotta please give us, 5-star ratings, like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. It really does make a difference. It seems kind of like an insignificant thing, but it really does make a big difference how other people see it. We just broke, and this is a few days after we recorded the podcast, but we did just break a number on Facebook that's going to make a big difference for us. So they give us a lot of these websites, they twist their algorithms a little bit and give us better, basically give us more tools, one, and also give us more favorability if we have higher ratings, more views, more downloads, things like that. So I really encourage that. Again, like I said in the intro, I would really appreciate if you guys would also visit the website moderately often. Just kind of monitor that. I try to post everything on the social medias, but I'm pretty busy recently. We've had a lot of vacations. I have a wedding I'm going to as I record this tomorrow. So I'm a little busy. Sometimes I don't always get it up, but every podcast, every article that we post will be on the website. So don't forget FreeChinaPost.com. And basically everything else we're at FreeChinaPost on Facebook, Twitter, everything like that. If you are missing something, you can always email us at social@FreeChinaPost.com. So yeah, don't forget to do that. Just let us know. I mean, most of you guys are probably have our Facebook or Twitter or something like that. You can always @ me. I pretty much am on all of those every day. Maybe aside from the Instagram, but I try to stay on there too. But just, let us know, get at us. We'll always respond. We'll always let you know. And if we don't respond the first time, just keep adding us and we'll eventually get back to you. To get done with all that, really appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back at you pretty soon here. I believe today is Friday for me, Friday night. So got a wedding tomorrow and should be recording hopefully Saturday night or Sunday depending on schedules. So we will get at you guys. Don't forget, if you guys have any topics or anything you think is pressing and you want us to cover, or if you think you would like to be on as a guest, you can hit us up. Know that you might get denied, but you might make it on the pod. Hopefully I'm going to get some more interviews soon. Like I said, we've been on vacation and I've been busy, so it's been really hard for me to get people to come on the pod, and matching up times, especially being we're basically on the opposite side of the world from most of the people that